Hello everyone. What happens when the safest thing Alex can offer is a hidden refuge far from the farm? But the woman he loves looks down at the trembling baby in her arms and realizes that if she keeps running from one strange place to another, the child may lose his sense of safety long before the enemy ever reaches the door again. If your heart still believes the most painful love is the one that protects without possession, stay with me. The riverside house should have felt like rescue. Instead, by the time the note was unfolded and the words "I knew you'd choose water" settled into the room like cold breath, Tuna understood something almost as frightening as the threat itself. There was no true refuge in a place that did not know her child. Henry was asleep at last, exhausted into silence after too much crying, too many sudden roads, too much fear moving through the adults who held him. His tiny body lay in the middle of the bed with the blue blanket tucked around him, one hand open near his cheek, lashes still damp from the tears that had dried there. At 1 year old, he did not know what danger meant. He only knew rhythm, the room where he usually woke, the smell of warm porridge, the angle of morning light at the farmhouse window, the sound of birds outside the yard, the familiar blanket, the usual bowl, the same arms carrying him across the same small rooms every day. That was how babies survived the world. Not through explanation, through repetition. And since leaving the farm, Henry had not truly rested once. Alex stood near the table with the note in his hand, rage and calculation moving together behind the stillness of his face. Tuna looked at him, then at the sleeping child, and for the first time since she had agreed to run with him, she felt a different kind of fear take shape inside her. Not only fear of the watcher, fear that if she kept letting Henry be carried from place to place by adult panic, the baby would begin to live in fear even when no one touched him. And when she finally spoke, her voice was soft enough to sound almost impossible. "I want to go back to the farm." Alex turned to her so sharply that for a second the note in his hand was forgotten. "No." The answer came too fast to be harsh, but too honest to hide what it cost him even to hear the idea. Tuna did not flinch. She had expected resistance. She had expected the look in his eyes too, the protective alarm, the disbelief, the silent calculation of how much danger could possibly drive a woman to ask for the very place that had already been watched, measured, and violated. Henry stirred faintly on the bed, and both of them lowered their voices at once. Tuna stepped closer to the child before speaking again. "Listen to me first." Alex said nothing. That, at least, was his mercy. Even in fear, even when every instinct in him wanted to refuse for her sake, he still gave her room to speak. Tuna looked down at Henry as she talked, as if the real answer lived in the baby more clearly than in herself. "He hasn't slept properly since we left," she said. "He cries when the car turns. He cries when I try to lay him down. He startles at everything. This place is quiet, yes. It's hidden, yes, but it smells different. The bed is different. The light is different. Even my arms feel different when I'm frightened like this." Her voice trembled once, then steadied. "He is only 1 year old, Alex. He doesn't understand escape. He doesn't understand that we're trying to keep him safe. He only feels that nothing around him is the same." The words landed with painful precision because they were true. Alex looked at Henry. The baby's breathing had evened out for now, but not deeply. There were still little catches in it from the crying that had worn him down. One sock had slipped slightly under the blanket. One flushed cheek was pressed into the sheet. He looked small enough to break a grown heart by simply sleeping too restlessly. Tuna went on, softer now. "At the farm, I know how to calm him. I know which room settles him faster. I know how long he can stay by the window before he grows fussy. I know where the air is cooler in the afternoon, where he falls asleep best, which sounds are familiar enough not to frighten him. That place is dangerous now, I know it is, but it is still the one place that belongs to his body, not just to me." To him, Alex lowered his eyes for a second. That was the reason he had not wanted to hear, because it made the decision human instead of reckless. If Tuna had spoken only from pride, he could have argued with firmness and perhaps even won. But she was not asking to return because she was stubborn. She was asking because she was a mother watching a baby come undone from too much unfamiliar fear. "The farm is exactly where they looked first," he said at last. "Exactly where they know to go." "Yes, and if I agree, I send you back into a place they have already chosen." "No," Tuna said quietly. If you agree, you help me protect Henry in the only place where he still knows how to feel safe." The room fell into silence. Outside, beyond the shutters, the river moved unseen. The faint sound of water against the bank made the house feel isolated in a way that might have calmed anyone else. But Tuna heard only strangeness in it. It was not the farm's breathing, not the rustle of leaves by her own yard, not the soft old sounds of her real life. She sat down beside Henry and touched the blanket lightly over his stomach. "This place may be safer for adults," she said, "not for a baby who's already too frightened." Alex watched her hand rest there. He thought of the road, Henry crying with each hard turn, the helpless way Tuna had folded around him in the back seat, the fact that even here, after all the hiding and all the caution, the first real peace in the child's face had lasted only a few minutes before another note dragged fear into the room again. There were moments when protection meant carrying people away from danger. There were other moments when protection meant understanding that safety was not only about walls, gates, and hidden roads. Sometimes it was about smell, routine, light, and the ordinary repetition that let a child's small nervous system believe the world had not split apart. Alex knew that. That made agreeing harder, not easier. "You're asking me to let you return to the place I most want you removed from," he said. Tuna finally lifted her eyes to him. "I'm asking you not to protect me in a way that breaks Henry first." That sentence passed through him like something blunt and deep. For a while, neither moved. Then Henry whimpered in his sleep. Tuna bent over him at once, one palm smoothing softly over his chest, the other adjusting the blanket where it had loosened. The baby's fingers twitched once, then calmed beneath her touch. Alex saw it clearly, not simply maternal tenderness, but precise knowledge. She knew exactly how much pressure soothed, exactly how quickly to touch and then stop, exactly how to settle him without waking him fully. If he took her father from that life, he would be asking Henry to adapt to adult strategy at an age when adaptation itself could become injury. Alex let out a slow breath. "I will take you to my house," he said. Tuna looked at him, startled. He held her gaze. "Not because I don't want to keep you close, because whoever is behind this already expects my most obvious move. And because you're right about Henry." The admission shifted something between them. Not victory, not relief. Something quieter and more dangerous, trust offered through restraint. Tuna's eyes softened with gratitude so painful it almost resembled grief. "I didn't want to go there," she whispered. "I know." He knew the sentence meant more than geography. His house would have been too intimate, too public in the wrong ways, too full of meanings neither of them was ready to force into daylight. He had heard all that before she said it. Alex crossed to the table and reached for his phone. "If you go back, you don't go back alone," he said. "And you don't go back the same way." Henry stirred again, making a faint, sleepy complaint. Tuna lifted him before he could wake into crying, gathering his heavy little body into her arms. He immediately quieted, face folding against her shoulder, the familiar answer to everything still being her. That decided the rest of it for Alex more than any argument could have. The next hour moved in low voices, urgent planning and the strange stillness that comes when adults decide something dangerous only because every other option feels wrong in a different way. Alex made 3 calls. The first was to Min, in the same cool tone he used when giving instructions no one was allowed to question. "I'm changing the plan," he said. "Spread 2 locations, not one. One toward the city, one farther inland. Let the wrong people hear both." The second call was shorter. Security, but not uniformed men who would turn Tuna's home into a spectacle. He wanted plain clothes, distance, quiet observation. Protection that looked like ordinary life from the road. The third call he did not explain in front of her. He stepped outside for it, speaking low enough that the river nearly swallowed his words. When he came back, there was a different kind of readiness in him, not relief. Resolve sharpened into method. Tuna had spent that time feeding Henry a little milk after he woke crying again in confusion. He drank only some of it, still too unsettled to take much, but the moment was enough to prove her point. He had not wanted the strange bed, had not wanted to lie there alone, even half awake. He wanted her arms, her smell, her voice, and the unthinking certainty of a home his body recognized. When Alex returned to the bedroom doorway, he found her sitting at the edge of the bed, Henry half dozing against her chest, one tiny hand pressed under his chin. "We leave in 15 minutes, he said. Tuna nodded. He hesitated, then added, "When we get near the farm, I go first." Tuna looked up. "Why?" "Because if anyone is waiting for you to walk through that gate frightened and exposed, I want them to see me there before they see you." The answer was so simple, so deeply him, that she could not speak for a moment. Henry let out a small breath and burrowed closer. Tuna pressed her cheek to his hair and looked away before Alex could see too clearly how close she had come to tears. The drive back felt different from the drive away. Not safer, more deliberate. Alex did not take the direct route. He doubled back through the fishing district, crossed a market road, then cut through a line of old orchards before reaching the lane that would eventually lead toward the farm. Twice he stopped long enough to check the mirror and wait. Twice he changed roads again. Behind them, no dark sedan stayed long enough to declare itself. That absence only made him more suspicious. In the back seat, Henry was quieter this time, but not because he was at ease. He had reached the fragile exhaustion that comes after too much crying. He lay against Tuna's shoulder with his eyes half closed, every now and then making a weak little sound when the car jolted or slowed too suddenly. She kept one hand cupped over the back of his head and whispered to him whenever his body stiffened. As they drew closer to the outer fields near the farm, something in the baby changed. It was not dramatic, just subtle. He lifted his head once, looked toward the window, not with understanding, but with the dim recognition that babies have of returning light, returning movement, returning smell. Tuna felt it too. The air had changed. Even through the closed car, the familiar scent of earth and leaves had begun to seep back in. She looked out at the road and felt her throat tighten. This was danger. This was home. The two things had become inseparable now. Alex parked one lane away and turned to face her. "You stay here with Henry until I call." Tuna nodded, though every nerve in her wanted to step out immediately and touch the ground of her own yard. Alex got out alone. He did not rush. He moved with the controlled attention of a man who knew that fear made people reckless and that recklessness was exactly what their enemy had been trying to draw from him. He went first to the gate, checked the latch, then the posts, then the path leading to the porch. No new parcel, no obvious sign of tampering. But the absence of visible threat had long ago stopped meaning safety. He signaled once. Tuna stepped out with Henry in her arms. The moment her feet touched the soil near her own house, something in her body loosened so sharply it almost hurt. Not because the danger had vanished, because the place still knew her. The angle of the porch, the worn board by the door, the curtain moving exactly as it always did. Even Henry seemed to feel it. He had begun to fuss when she first lifted him from the car, but now he grew quieter, blinking drowsily toward the house with that serious, vague, pre-verbal attention babies give to what is known. Inside, the change was clearer. The room smelled of home, not safety, not yet, but home. Tuna lowered herself into the old chair near the window and held Henry against her. Within minutes, his breathing changed. The tension in his small body eased by degrees. His fingers, which had been clutching weakly at her blouse ever since the drive began, loosened. When she laid his cheek against the same shoulder he had known every day in this room, he gave one soft little sigh and drifted into a deeper sleep than he had managed anywhere else all morning. Alex stood in the doorway and watched it happen. That was the final proof. Tuna had not brought him back because she could not bear to run. She had brought him back because the child needed this exact room more than any adult plan. "I'll set men farther out," Alex said quietly. "Not near the house. Near the road, the field edge, the canal. No uniforms, no noise." Tuna looked up at him and nodded. "Thank you." He wanted to say more than that moment would allow. Something about how no thanks was needed. About how her asking him not to bring her to his house had not wounded him the way she feared. About how protecting her from a distance might hurt more but would still be protection. Instead, he only said, "Keep your phone with you at all times." The afternoon lowered gradually around them. Henry slept longer than before, finally settled by the familiar house. Tuna used that precious quiet to wash his bottle, fold the little blanket back into its usual place, and restore small domestic details, as if stitching the room together again might strengthen the walls. Alex remained mostly outside, speaking briefly with the men he had arranged, mapping sightlines from the lane, the trees, the rear of the property. No one came close enough to be seen. That should have calmed him. It didn't, because skilled pressure often stepped back once it got exactly the reaction it wanted. Near late afternoon, Min called. Alex answered away from the porch, but not so far that he could not still see the house. One of the false locations moved, Min said. Alex's face hardened. Which one? The inland one. That meant someone had bitten the bait. Good. But before he could speak again, Min added something that turned the good cold. And there's more. A delivery van left the main road 20 minutes ago, headed toward your farm route. No company markings. Alex turned at once. From where he stood, the lane beyond the trees looked empty. The house behind him was quiet. Inside, Tu Na was likely sitting with Henry, newly awake, perhaps warming porridge, perhaps believing just for this one fragile hour that coming home had not been a mistake. Can you confirm the van's plate? Alex asked. Fake, Min said. Or changed. Alex's voice dropped. How far? Too close. He ended the call and was already moving back toward the house when he heard it. Not an engine at first. A tiny sound from inside. Henry crying. Not the sleepy little complaint of waking. A sharp, startled cry. And almost at the same instant, from beyond the front gate, came the slow crunch of tires turning onto the gravel lane. Tu Na returned to the farm for a reason stronger than fear. Henry is too young to survive endless flight without losing the only rhythm that tells his body the world is still safe. Alex accepted the truth and chose to protect her without bringing her into his own home, turning love into restraint rather than possession. For a few precious hours, the farmhouse gives Henry the first real rest he has known all day, proving Tu Na was right about what her child needed most. But just as that fragile peace begins to breathe again, a fake delivery van reaches the farm road, and Henry's sudden cry warns that danger may already be at the gate once more.